She entered the bank just before mid-morning, when the air inside still felt calm and the line at the counters was short. The glass doors slid open with a soft mechanical hum, and for a moment she paused, taking in the space as if she were stepping into a place she had known a long time ago. The floor was polished to a mirror shine, reflecting chandeliers that looked more decorative and useful. Everything smelled faintly of air freshener and money. She was old, that much was clear, but not fragile in the way people often assumed. Her back was straight despite the slow pace of her steps. A wooden cane tapped lightly against the marble as she walked. Her coat was simple, dark brown, carefully buttoned. Her shoes were clean but worn, the kind that had walked many years and many places. Her gray hair was neatly pulled back, revealing a face lined by time, not neglect. At the front desk, a young receptionist glanced up, her smile automatic and practiced. The smile faltered just slightly as her eyes traveled over the woman's clothes, her cane, the absence of a designer bag. "Yes, ma'am?" the receptionist asked. "I need to speak with the branch manager," the woman said. Her voice was low, calm, and clear. The receptionist hesitated. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," the woman replied gently. "But it won't take long." The receptionist glanced toward the glass-walled office to the right, where the branch manager stood talking animatedly on his phone. He laughed loudly, one hand in his pocket, his watch catching the light. He noticed the hesitation at the desk and followed the receptionist's gaze. He saw the woman. His smile faded into something thinner, more measured. He covered the phone and leaned toward the receptionist. "Tell her I'm tied up," he said quietly, not bothering to lower his voice enough. "She can wait." The receptionist nodded and turned back. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The manager is very busy right now. You can take a seat, and he'll get to you when he can." The woman nodded once. "Thank you." She didn't argue. She didn't ask how long. She walked slowly to a row of plastic chairs along the wall and sat down, placing her purse neatly on her lap. She folded her hands over it and waited. At first, it seemed ordinary enough. Banks were busy places. She had lived long enough to understand that. She watched the doors open and close, listened to the soft beeping of machines, the murmur of conversations. A man in a tailored suit arrived 10 minutes later and was immediately escorted into an office. A young couple came in arguing quietly and were helped within minutes. A woman with a designer handbag complained loudly about a minor delay and was apologized to twice. No one looked at her. An hour passed. The chair grew uncomfortable, the hard plastic pressing into her back. She shifted slightly, careful not to make a sound. Her cane rested against her leg. A teller walked by, glanced at her, then looked away. The receptionist avoided eye contact now, busying herself with papers that didn't need rearranging. From time to time, the manager stepped out of his office, laughing with clients, shaking hands, projecting confidence. Each time, he walked past her without stopping. Once, his eyes flicked toward her and then away, as if acknowledging her existence would be an inconvenience. She remained still. She studied the bank the way some people studied paintings in a gallery. The way employees spoke to certain customers and not to others. The way apologies flowed easily in one direction and never in another. The way time itself seemed to move differently depending on who you were. 2 hours passed. Her legs began to ache. A faint stiffness settled into her knees. She adjusted her coat and took a slow breath, steadying herself. She had endured worse waits in her life than this. Much worse. But this one felt different. This one was deliberate. A young teller whispered something to another, both glancing toward her. They smiled, not kindly. The manager emerged again, checking his watch. He stopped a few feet away from her, as though just now remembering she was there. "You still here?" he asked, not unkindly but not kindly either. "Yes," she said. He raised his eyebrows. "It might be a while." "That's all right," she replied. He shrugged and walked away. 3 hours. The bank grew louder as lunchtime approached. Chairs scraped. Phones rang. Someone spilled coffee and laughed it off. The woman's stomach growled softly, but she ignored it. She sat with dignity, her eyes calm, her expression unreadable. Another customer leaned toward the receptionist and whispered, nodding in her direction. The receptionist smirked. The manager overheard and smiled thinly. "Some people don't understand how these places work," he said loud enough for her to hear. She heard him. Of course she did. She said nothing. At the 3-hour mark, something changed, not in the room, but in her. Her fingers tightened slightly around the handle of her purse. Her gaze sharpened. She wasn't angry. Anger would have been easier for them to dismiss. What settled over her instead was resolve. She reached into her purse slowly, deliberately. A few nearby heads turned, curiosity flickering. She pulled out her phone, old but well kept, and looked at the screen. Her thumb hovered for a moment, then pressed a number. She didn't stand. She didn't move to a quieter corner. She made the call right there. "Yes," she said softly when the call connected. "I'm here." She listened. Nodded once. "No," she continued. "I haven't been helped yet." A pause. "That's all right," she said. "Just wanted you to know." She ended the call and placed the phone back into her purse. Around her, the bank continued as if nothing had happened. No alarms. No raised voices. No obvious sign that anything had shifted. But something had. She straightened slightly in her chair. Her shoulders squared. Her eyes lifted from the floor to the room around her. She wasn't waiting anymore. She was observing. And somewhere beyond the glass doors, the clock was ticking toward a moment no one inside was prepared for. The 4th hour crept in quietly, almost politely, as if it didn't want to announce itself. The bank was busier now. Lunchtime brought a steady stream of customers, the kind who spoke loudly and expected to be heard. The air felt warmer, thicker, filled with impatience and the low hum of entitlement. She was still there. The chair no longer felt like a chair. It felt like a test. Her back ached, and a dull numbness settled into her legs, but she did not rub them or shift too much. She refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing discomfort on her face. Her hands remained folded, her posture composed, her eyes alert. A middle-aged man in a crisp suit took the seat beside her, glanced at her once, then immediately stood again as if the chair had offended him. He walked back to the counter and was helped within minutes. As he passed her on the way out, he avoided her gaze entirely. The receptionist called out a name, cheerful and bright. Another client was escorted past her, offered coffee, asked about their day. The woman watched it all, absorbing every detail, every contrast. This wasn't carelessness anymore. It was choice. The branch manager finally approached again, his patience clearly thinning. He stood directly in front of her now, hands on his hips, voice louder than necessary. "Ma'am," he said, drawing the attention of nearby customers, "I told you earlier it would take time. We don't usually handle walk-ins like this." A few heads turned. Someone nearby slowed their typing. The room leaned subtly toward the exchange. "I understand," she said calmly. He sighed, exaggerated, as if burdened. "Do you have paperwork? An account number? Anything at all that would justify?" He stopped himself, smirking. "This wait?" Her eyes lifted to meet his. They were steady. Clear. "I have everything I need," she replied. A short laugh escaped him before he could stop it. "That's usually what people say." A woman waiting nearby chuckled softly. Another shook her head. The manager leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound condescending rather than cruel. "Look, I'll be honest with you. We deal with serious financial matters here. High-level clients. Maybe you'd be more comfortable coming back another day." There it was. Not said outright, but sharp enough to cut. She did not flinch. "I'm very comfortable," she said. He straightened, clearly irritated now. "Suit yourself?" He turned away, but the damage was done. The whispers grew louder. A teller muttered something about wasted time. Someone else sighed dramatically. She felt the weight of every look. The kind that stripped a person down to assumptions. Poor. Unimportant. Invisible. Her stomach tightened, not from hunger but from memory. She remembered other rooms like this. Other chairs. Other times she had been told to wait, to sit quietly, to know her place. She remembered learning, slowly and painfully, how silence could be both a shield and a weapon. Another half-hour passed. A security guard shifted closer, not threatening, but present. His eyes flicked toward her, then toward the manager, as if waiting for instruction. She noticed. The manager noticed her noticing. He returned again, this time with forced politeness stretched thin like fragile glass. "Ma'am," he said, "you've been here a long time. If you don't have an appointment, I really don't know what else to tell you." She looked around the room, then back at him. "You could tell me the truth." He frowned. "What truth?" She smiled faintly. "That you decided I wasn't worth your time the moment I walked in." A sharp intake of breath came from somewhere behind them. The receptionist froze. The manager's face flushed. "That's not fair," he snapped. "You don't know anything about how I run this branch." She nodded slowly. "I know exactly how you run it." For a moment, it looked like he might say something worse. Instead, he waved a dismissive hand. "I have work to do." He walked away, leaving the tension hanging in the air like smoke. She sat back down. The security guard stepped away again. The whispers returned, quieter now, edged with discomfort. No one laughed anymore. No one smiled. Her fingers slipped once more into her purse, but this time she didn't take out her phone immediately. She waited, listening to the rhythm of the room, the false calm, the arrogance settling back into place. Then she took the phone out again. This time she stood. The room noticed. She walked slowly toward the far wall, near the windows, not hiding, not seeking privacy. She simply wanted space. Her voice was low but firm. "Yes," she said. "I'm still here." She listened longer this time. Her expression didn't change, but something firm behind her eyes, like steel settling into place. "No," she said. "They don't know yet." A pause. "Yes. For hours." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. "That's fine. I wanted to see it myself." She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her purse. When she turned around, she caught the manager watching her from across the room. Their eyes locked for a brief second. Something unreadable passed over his face, curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest hint of doubt. He looked away first. She returned to her chair, sat down carefully, and folded her hands again. The clock ticked loudly now. Each second felt heavier than the last. And as the front doors prepared to open once more, the bank remained unaware that the most important people in the room were not the ones standing behind the counters, but the one they had forced to wait the longest. The doors opened without drama. No loud announcement. No raised voices. Just a smooth glide of glass and a subtle shift in the air, the kind that happens before people realize something important has entered the room. She felt it before she saw it. The low murmur of the bank softened. Laughter stopped halfway through a sentence. Even the machines seemed quieter, their beeping less insistent. The receptionist straightened so fast her chair scraped against the floor. A teller froze mid-motion, a pen suspended above paper. 4 people walked in together. They did not rush. They did not look around with curiosity. They moved with purpose, calm and assured, the way people do when they are used to being obeyed. Their clothes were tailored, understated but expensive. Their expressions were neutral, professional and alert. The receptionist's face drained of color. "Good afternoon," she said quickly, standing. "Welcome." The woman at the front of the group nodded once, her eyes already scanning the room. She was tall, composed, her hair styled neatly, her presence unmistakable. A small pin on her lapel caught the light. Anyone who worked there knew that pin. The board. The branch manager stepped out of his office, surprise flickering across his face before he masked it with a broad, eager smile. This is unexpected," he said, smoothing his tie as he hurried forward. "We weren't informed of a visit today." "We didn't announce it," the woman replied evenly. Her eyes moved past him. They landed on the old woman sitting quietly near the wall. The change was immediate. The board member's expression softened, then warmed. She broke formation without hesitation and crossed the room, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. The other board members followed, confused but attentive. She stopped in front of the old woman and smiled, genuine and respectful. "There you are," she said. The room held its breath. The old woman looked up slowly, her face calm, her eyes knowing. "I was beginning to think you might be late," she replied lightly. The board member laughed softly. "I wouldn't dare." She knelt down in front of her, ignoring the stares, the shock, the confusion rippling through the room. "I'm sorry you were kept waiting." The words landed like thunder. The branch manager's smile vanished. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked around, as if waiting for someone to explain what he was seeing. The other board members approached, their faces now registering recognition. One of them inclined his head respectfully. Another offered his hand. "Madam," he said, "it's good to see you." The old woman accepted his hand and stood with grace, leaning lightly on her cane. She was suddenly taller somehow, her presence filling the space she had occupied invisibly for hours. The manager finally found his voice. I don't understand," he said, laughing nervously. "Is there a misunderstanding?" The old woman turned toward him. For the first time, she did not smile. "This," she said calmly, "is exactly what I came to understand." The board member beside her straightened and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice clear and carrying, "this is the chairwoman emeritus of this institution." Gasps rippled outward like a shockwave. The receptionist's hand flew to her mouth. A teller dropped a stack of papers. The security guard stiffened, eyes wide. The manager felt the blood drain from his face. The old woman looked around the bank slowly, deliberately, taking in every face, every frozen expression. "I asked to come in today as a customer," she said. "No titles. No announcements. No special treatment." Her gaze settled back on the manager. "You gave me exactly that." He swallowed hard. "I didn't know," he said quickly. "If I had known." She raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "That," she said, "is the problem." The board member nodded. "You see," she added, "she wanted to observe. To see how people are treated when they have nothing that immediately impresses you." The old woman stepped forward, her cane tapping once against the floor. "For hours," she said, her voice steady, "I watched clients come and go. I watched who was welcomed and who was tolerated. I listened to what was said when you thought I couldn't hear." The manager shook his head, panic creeping into his eyes. "I never meant any disrespect." "You didn't mean respect either," she replied. Silence swallowed the room. She walked slowly toward the chair she had occupied for so long, placed her hand on its back, and looked at it for a moment. "Do you know what this seat taught me?" she asked. No one answered. "It taught me that policies don't mean much without character," she continued. "That smiles are cheap. That kindness given only to those who appear important is not kindness at all." She turned back to the board. "I asked for this visit because numbers can lie. Reports can be polished. But people reveal themselves when they think no one is watching." The board member beside her took out a tablet, her expression now serious. "We'll need a full review of this branch," she said. "Immediately." The manager's knees seemed to weaken. "Please," he said, lowering his voice. "I've worked hard for this position." The old woman looked at him, not with anger, but with something heavier. Disappointment. "So did I," she said quietly. She walked toward the exit, the board members parting to give her space. As she passed the receptionist, she paused. "You did your job," she said kindly. "But one day, when you're in charge, remember who you let wait." The receptionist nodded, tears welling in her eyes. The doors opened again, letting in a wash of afternoon light. The old woman stepped forward, then stopped just short of leaving. She turned back one last time. "This place will change," she said calmly. "Because it has to." Then she walked out, leaving behind a room full of people who finally understood that the longest wait had been the test, and they had already failed it. The silence she left behind was heavier than any accusation. It pressed into the walls, into the polished counters, into the people who suddenly did not know where to stand or what to say. The automatic doors slid shut behind her, sealing the moment, but nothing inside the bank returned to normal. The board members remained still for a few seconds, allowing the weight of what had happened to settle. Then the woman with the tablet spoke again, her voice calm but firm, the kind that carried consequences. "This visit is no longer observational," she said. "It is corrective." The branch manager stood frozen near the center of the room. His tie felt too tight now. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. He opened his mouth to speak, then thought better of it. One of the board members gestured toward his office. "We'll start there." As they walked past him without another glance, the message was clear. He was no longer in control of this space. Employees watched as the board entered the office, closing the glass door behind them. Conversations resumed slowly, but the tone had changed. No one laughed. No one complained. People avoided looking at the chair by the wall, as if it carried a presence of its own. Minutes passed. Then more. The receptionist sat down carefully, her hands folded in her lap, replaying every interaction in her mind. She remembered the old woman's voice, steady and kind even when she had no reason to be. Shame crept up her spine, not because she had been cruel, but because she had been silent. The security guard shifted his weight and glanced toward the door, imagining the woman walking down the street now, cane tapping, dignity intact. He had seen many people escorted out of buildings like this. He had never seen someone walk out having changed it. Inside the office, voices were low but intense. Papers were spread across the desk. Timelines were reconstructed. Incidents were named out loud, stripped of excuses. The manager tried to explain, tried to justify, tried to sound reasonable. But the words rang hollow. "What concerns us," the board member said at last, "is not that you made a mistake. It's that you didn't see one." The manager swallowed. "I treat everyone professionally." "Professionally," she repeated. "Or selectively?" Another board member leaned forward. "She waited 4 hours. Do you deny that?" "No." "She was publicly embarrassed. Do you deny that?" "No." "You assumed she wasn't a serious client. Do you deny that?" The manager hesitated too long. "That pause," the board member said quietly, "is your answer." Outside the office, a customer stood from the waiting area and approached the receptionist. "I don't need help anymore," he said softly. "I'll come back later." Others followed. The bank slowly emptied, not out of protest, but out of discomfort. No one wanted to sit where she had sat. No one wanted to wait anymore. The office door finally opened. The board members stepped out first. The manager followed last, his shoulders slumped, his confidence stripped away. He did not look at anyone as he gathered his things. "I'll be in touch," the board member said coolly. "For now, you're relieved of your duties." No shouting. No scene. Just consequences. The manager nodded once, his face pale, and walked out through the same doors the old woman had used. The bell chimed again, sounding different now, almost final. The remaining staff stood in uncertain silence. The board member turned to them. "This institution was built on trust," she said. "And trust is not measured by account size." She gestured toward the chair by the wall. "If someone can sit there for 4 hours without being seen, then we have failed." She paused. "That ends today." Over the next days, the changes came quickly. New policies were announced, but more importantly, new expectations. Employees were trained not just on procedure, but on awareness. On dignity. on the understanding that respect was not something to be earned by appearance. The chair by the wall was removed. In its place, a small table was set with water, brochures, and a sign that simply read, "Please let us know how we can help." No name. No explanation. Those who knew remembered. Across town, the old woman sat on a bench in a quiet park, sunlight warming her face. She rested her cane against her knee and watched people pass by. Her phone buzzed softly in her purse. "Yes," she said when she answered. "I'm fine." A pause. "Good," she continued. "Then it was worth it." She ended the call and looked up at the sky, her expression peaceful. She had not gone to the bank to punish anyone. She had gone to remind them of something easily forgotten, of something fragile. That dignity does not announce itself. That power does not always arrive loudly. That the true measure of a person is revealed not in how they treat those who impress them, but in how they treat those who are forced to wait. She stood slowly, steady and sure, and walked on. And somewhere behind her, a bank rebuilt itself, not with marble or glass, but with the quiet understanding that character, once exposed, demands to be changed.